A moment can change everything, and sometimes it happens so fast the room doesn't breathe. That's what it felt like when Kristi Noem walked into that hearing, raised her right hand, and swore she would tell the truth. No one expected what came next, because within minutes, the oath she took, the same oath meant to anchor trust in the people running this country, became the very thing critics say she stepped around, dodged, and twisted until the hearing room felt less like oversight and more like a slow, unraveling of her own words.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Attorney General. And I'm sorry I wasn't here for the whole hearing, so it's been addressed, but I think you really are very sensitive to the possibility of foreign agents or foreign influence on our government and making sure that we make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes.
Yes. I want to know if when the president held his dinner for 220 individuals who purchased the most of his meme coins, were there foreign interests attending that dinner?
Senator, we're here to talk about the Department of Justice and my budget for the upcoming year. I would think that you would want to talk about the leader of the Sinaloa cartel who was living in Oregon, one of the top leaders. I would think that that's what you would want to talk about with me. When we captured him, he had $3 million cash in his home.
Attorney General, I know that you avoided the same question on the House side, but what we know is that many folks who attended this dinner were buying those coins because they wanted to influence U.S. policy. We had Mr. Javier Selgas, the head of Freight Technology, Inc., who said, I bought $2 million of these coins. I plan to buy $20 million because I want a favor from the president to change the policy regarding freight from Mexico to the United States. This solicitation of investments in his personal product, his meme coin, led to many people who were coming from foreign countries attending that dinner. Don't you think the American people have a right to know? And you said yourself you're very concerned about foreign influence on our government.
Senator, it is wildly offensive that you would accuse President Trump of not protecting American interest in our country when he is the president that has shut down our borders, unlike Joe Biden. President Trump has done everything to make America safe, and you asked me the question, and keep America safe.
Do you
and
know
you're trying to play a gotcha question at a budget hearing when you have murders left and right in your state, violent crimes, and we are doing everything we can to help your liberal state. Whether you're liberal or not, we're going to do everything we can to help the citizens of your state, and you're trying to avoid that because you're trying to play a gotcha question with the President of the United States, and it's not going to work. We're here to talk about our budget for public safety.
I do believe that as the leader of the Department of Justice, you should be concerned about foreign influence. There was obviously a lot of foreign influence and individuals who said they were there for that reason. And so will you appoint a special investigator to make sure that that foreign influence does not affect the policies of the United States of America?
I'm not going to tell you what I will or will not do, other than I will do everything to keep the people of your state safe, even though you don't want to talk about anything to do with your state because of the crime in your state. You also voted no on the Laken-Riley Act. We are doing everything we can to protect the citizens of this country. You also said that President Trump encouraged protest. It was the opposite. He's done everything he can to keep us safe, and he will continue to, as well as the Department of Justice.
It speaks volumes that you won't answer the question about transparency when the president is asking people to invest in his company and his products, and that foreigners are attending these events. I think transparency would be appropriate. Are you going to recommend any ethics guidelines to make sure that foreign influence does not find its way in through the doors of the White House?
How do you characterize foreigners, the illegal aliens that have flowed into our country? Is that who you're talking about? You don't want to talk about them. You don't want to talk about the crime that has gone rampant throughout this country and your state.
Well, you know, these hearings are a chance for us to ask questions, and I assure you I'm engaged in national security in many, many ways. But this also I am concerned about. And let me turn to a different piece of the puzzle, because the president also has another cryptocurrency called USD1. It is a stable coin. There was a request by UAE to produce AI chips that would go to UAE. The National Security Advisor of UAE is also the CEO of MGX. So after that request for those chips occurred, MGX then said, we will buy 2 billion, billion with a B, of the president's coins. And then the president went to the Middle East and said, we will get you those AI chips. Does this sequence of events in which a foreign government asked for a big favor, and we had previously banned these chips to UAE because of the national security concerns. Then they buy $2 billion of the president's coins, and then the president goes to the Middle East and says, we will provide those chips. Does that sequence of events concern you about foreign influence on the United States of America?
The foreign influence on America that I would be concerned about if I were you was the Mexican national that resided in Oregon, who we just arrested, who had 384 pounds of methamphetamine. The foreign individual who I would be concerned about if I were a senator from Oregon is the Honduran drug trafficker who was residing in Portland for distributing fentanyl. The foreign national I would be concerned about if I was a Portland senator, an Oregon senator, is a Mexican national leader of a drug trafficking ring. Another one, fentanyl, firearms, fatal overdoses, all in your state.
You have made your point.
57,700 fentanyl pills and stolen firearms in Oregon. That's what we should work together on, not gotcha questions during a budget hearing.
Let me recognize Senator Merkley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Attorney General certainly has made the point that she's very concerned about issues that I'm concerned about as well regarding the security of this country. But let the record note that in terms of foreign influence and the sale of foreign influence through the president's coins, she absolutely refuses to respond and instead turns to a whole list of different topics. I think it's important for the leader of the Justice Department of the United States to be very concerned about foreign influence, and I encourage you to take on that topic and not consider it an offense that those of us who are concerned here, Democrats and Republicans, want Americans to make American decisions, not foreign influence being bought through crypto coins.
Senator Murkowski.
Chairman.
And the part that stunned everyone most? It wasn't the confrontation at the end. It was how the contradictions surfaced piece by piece. Like layers of a story she couldn't quite keep straight. People watching didn't know whether to lean back or lean in. And by the time the final line landed, the entire room was locked onto one question. How did this even happen? From the moment she sat down, the tension felt alive. You could almost see the shift, the way confidence settled into her posture, the way she leaned toward the microphone as if she already knew every question that would come her way. She repeated what officials often say in moments like this, that the Constitution is her guide, that her department follows the law, that every action taken is shaped by duty. It sounded clean, polished, safe. But almost instantly, holes began appearing in that polished shell. Critics on the committee didn't wait long before pointing out that what she was saying now didn't quite match what the courts had already put on the record. And the room felt it. That first crack in the story, subtle but unmistakable, the kind that makes you realize something bigger is coming. That first crack appeared when a federal court ruling was brought up, a ruling that didn't paint her department in the way she described it. Critics cited findings that under her leadership, DHS believed it could hold certain residents in foreign facilities without full due process. Not convicted individuals, but people entitled to constitutional protections. And suddenly, her phrase, "We follow the Constitution," didn't land with the strength she intended. Because here was a legal record saying otherwise. She insisted her team respected the law. Yet opponents argued the court had already drawn a very different picture. A picture of rights placed on pause, of due process not fully observed. Even people who had walked into the hearing with no expectations felt the shift. You don't have to understand every legal nuance to feel when something doesn't line up. And in that moment, nothing lined up. But somehow, this wasn't even the most difficult part of the questioning. It was only the beginning. Things escalated quickly when the discussion turned toward a unanimous Supreme Court order, the kind of decision government agencies don't get to ignore or debate. The court had directed DHS to return a man named Killer Garcia to the United States. Not a suggestion, not a polite request, a clear legal command. But when Noam was asked directly whether that order was followed, her response was blunt. He would not be returning. That single statement sent a ripple across the room. You could practically feel the air tighten as critics argued that this wasn't just a disagreement. It was defiance of the highest court in the country. How do you claim to follow every court ruling when the most recent one, a unanimous one, sits there unresolved? And why would a decision that clear end with a response that absolute? The moment raised questions that lingered long after she tried to move on. But the hearing wasn't close to done with her yet. The most emotional part, the one that seized the room and pulled every listener closer, came when the treatment of families and children was brought up. Reports and witnesses had already spoken publicly about cases involving U.S. citizen children facing deportation under circumstances families described as deceptive and unfair. Critics claimed parents were told to show up for routine appointments, only to find themselves separated from legal counsel and given no time to challenge the decision before their children were taken. Some of those children, according to families, were dealing with serious medical conditions. Whether every detail was fully verified or not, the claims shook the tone of the hearing. These weren't political talking points. These were personal stories. You could sense the discomfort across the panel, because once allegations involving children surface, the room changes. Noam insisted there was no wrongdoing. Opponents insisted the evidence suggested otherwise. And somewhere in the middle, the public was left wondering how something like this could even happen. Then came the power question, one that cut to the core of how she runs her department. Critics argued that Noam had expanded her authority in ways that stretched beyond traditional boundaries, taking unilateral control of certain deportation decisions without proper oversight. Allegations surfaced that she bypassed established review processes and ignored court attempts to intervene. To her supporters, this might look like decisive action. To her opponents, it looked like someone rewriting the rulebook in real time. And the concern wasn't just about the decisions themselves, but the precedent they could set. If a single official can remove people based on their personal assessment alone, where does oversight fit? Where do checks and balances go? It was the kind of question with no easy answers, and her responses only deepened the uncertainty. Layer by layer, the hearing kept moving into territory that painted a picture far bigger than a single policy dispute. The conversation shifted toward DHS's budget plans, and this is where the confusion grew even more. Critics said her strategy for the department appeared laser-focused on border operations while leaving other essential missions struggling. Cybersecurity cuts, emergency preparedness cuts, aviation security cuts, all happening at a time when foreign cyber aggression is rising, natural disasters are intensifying, and national infrastructure faces more threats than ever. To those questioning her, this wasn't just a disagreement over funding priorities. It was a warning sign. How can the nation be protected on multiple fronts if entire sectors of DHS are thinned out or understaffed? And why would a department responsible for national resilience allow so much erosion in the first place? Even neutral observers watching the hearing online admitted they had never seen such a wide gap between stated mission and proposed resources. That led directly into one of the most puzzling moments of the day, the question of who's actually still working inside DHS. For months, members of Congress had asked for the numbers. How many people resigned? How many were fired? How many positions were left empty? And despite repeated requests, no clear answers came. In this hearing, the same uncertainty resurfaced. No detailed workforce report. No breakdown. No written plan for FEMA's future readiness. No detailed explanation for CIS's staffing levels. Critics argued that this level of secrecy leaves Americans vulnerable. If no one knows how many emergency responders remain on staff, how can communities prepare? If cyber defenders are disappearing, how can the country defend against ongoing digital threats? The entire discussion painted a picture of an agency running on guesses rather than grounded strategy. And Noam's responses didn't calm the concerns. If anything, they raised more. All these moments, the disputes over court orders, the allegations involving children, the questions about workforce cuts, the claims about due process, built pressure slowly. And then, at the end of the hearing, everything snapped into a single moment that people will remember long after the footage fades. The closing remarks weren't loud. They didn't need to be. Thompson leaned in and dropped a line that cut straight through the political noise. If you dance with the devil long enough, he's liable to follow you home. It wasn't shouted. It wasn't exaggerated. It was delivered with the kind of clarity that leaves no room for misunderstanding. He accused her of misleading the committee, of contradicting the courts, of steering DHS toward a dangerous path. And he did it in a way that framed the entire hearing as not just a disagreement, but a warning. A warning about truth. A warning about power. A warning about what happens when leadership loses sight of the people it's supposed to protect. As he finished speaking, the room sat in that heavy quiet, the kind you only hear after something strikes deeper than expected. Noam didn't respond. The hearing adjourned. Cameras panned. But the questions left behind didn't fade. Because once allegations touch the Constitution, once decisions appear to contradict courts, once families describe being misled, once national security staffing becomes a mystery, those aren't issues that disappear with a closing gavel. Those follow a leader long after the hearing room empties. And that's the part that lingers. This wasn't just about one exchange or one clash. It was a larger story about trust. How fast it fractures, how hard it is to rebuild, and how the country watches every moment that contributes to that break. People are left wondering what comes next. Will more information surface? Will the department answer the questions it avoided? Will the decisions criticized so heavily be defended or reversed? No one knows yet. But what's clear is that this hearing left a mark. And for a lot of viewers, it raised concerns they'd never thought about before. So if you want to stay ahead of these developing stories, the hearings, the investigations, the political battles shaping what really happens inside the agencies we rely on, make sure you're here for the next one. Hit subscribe, tap the like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss a breakdown of moments that matter. This story isn't over, and neither are the questions it raised. Stay tuned.